It's good, yeah.
Well, the secret of my household is that I don't cook. My husband, David Korten, is the cook, and he is very good. But I do have a dish that I cook because he does not cook desserts. So I have a rhubarb plant in my garden, and about this time of year, it starts to produce one heck of a lot of rhubarb. Now, here on Bainbridge Island, we're also famous for strawberries. So you can imagine where I'm going with this. We are talking about rhubarb strawberry crumble. I don't like to make a pie. I don't roll dough very well. And I love to make just the crumble on top. And that is super delicious. We have just one big idea, and that is that we want to help inspire millions of people's active engagement in making the huge changes that are needed in our society today. So we started with the notion that our many aspects of the way our society and the whole world operates is unsustainable. We are headed toward a cliff, and we have got to change course. And our other hypothesis, or premise, is that the big changes are so large that leaders at the top are not going to be able to make them. That what it will take is people from the grassroots inventing new ways to live, new kinds of institutions, new policies, new ideas that will take us to a different way of living, because we know that 50 years from now, our world will not look like it does today. So the fundamental idea here is to lift up the stories of the people who are doing those changes, who are living in new ways, and show that actually the changes that we need to make, many of them are fun, they're inspiring, they are ways that can bring us to a more joyful world, a more sustainable, fair world that everyone can enjoy being a part of. So these are not sacrifices. These are changes that we can all be a part of and be glad we are. Well, it's interesting. We've been cultivating really large networks of key social change leaders over these 18 years that we have been publishing. So people come to us with their stories, for one thing. We also, in the magazine, we have themes. So, for example, a theme about cooperatives. So then we go out and we look for who's doing the very best work on cooperatives, and we invite them to write for us. Similarly, online, we have beats. So, for example, food. Local food is a beat. So we're actively looking for who is doing the best stories. And sometimes people like yourself drop by, and they're out there searching for good stories and give us leads. So the great thing is that there are so many stories out there. When you look at the community level, rather than simply at the national level, which most media do, but when you look at neighborhoods and towns and cities and states, and you look abroad to other countries, the stories are everywhere. And we knew that when we founded Yes, and I will tell you that in the 18 years since then, the stories have proliferated enormously. Many, many people, including young people, know that there's got to be a different way of living, and they're eager to be part of it. So, for example, here's an issue of Yes, go local. Well, when we were publishing the ideas of going local early on, that was kind of a fringe idea. And of course, as you well know, and many of the people that will watch your video know, this is not a fringe idea anymore. This is a mainstream idea. And so the manifestations of that idea are everywhere. So that's just one example. Another example is the one I mentioned about cooperatives. Cooperatives were, I think, 15 years ago, thought to be kind of a dead idea. They weren't dead. They're actually very large cooperatives in our society, and about 141 million people belong in some form to some kind of cooperative. So they're far from dead, but the idea was kind of dead. It is no longer dead. People are so fed up with the Wall Street banks and the huge corporations that discovering alternatives, how can we organize in ways that treat workers fairly, that are part of a community, that contribute not just to a financial bottom line, but to a community spirit. Those are things people are looking for actively now. And so when we published this issue on cooperatives, it was incredibly popular. People just were eager to help spread the idea that there are options to this predatory Wall Street system that is so dominant today. Well, one of the things I love about Yes is we lift up leaders that most people have not heard of. So we did this issue on the Breakthrough 15. And this was, we did a nationwide search. We asked leading famous people to name people who were less famous, and came up with 15 absolutely remarkable leaders that most people would never have heard of. So for example, the gal on the cover here is May Boev. Her boss is Bill McKibben. All right, everybody knows Bill McKibben, 350. But who are some of the people behind Bill McKibben who really make the thing work? Well, May Boev is one. So that would be an example, and there are so many others here. Here's Henry Red Cloud. So Henry is doing solar on the Pine Ridge Reservation. So that's a hero that Naomi Klein nominated. Now, lots of people have heard of Naomi Klein, but not very many people have heard of Henry Red Cloud. Another example would be Lily Yeh. So Lily does art in devastated places. And again, not too many people know Lily Yeh, but we lifted her up as one of our Breakthrough 15, and she was nominated by Terry Tempest Williams, who more people would have heard of her. Nipun Mehta is another of our heroes. He established something called Service Space, and lots of people may have heard of his efforts to spread the idea of pay it forward, where maybe you pay for somebody else's bill in a restaurant, or pay a toll as you go through a car toll. You pay the car behind you, to kind of emphasize the altruistic and generous spirit that actually most people have. So those would be examples of some of the heroes that we lift up. And of course we do that with every issue. And I just love that in telling these stories, our readers can see themselves in that. It's sometimes, you can't think of yourself as being like President of the United States or something, but you can see yourself in these kinds of people. People who are doing things often at a local level, maybe not at a massive scale, but still contributing in significant ways that begin to help create a shift in the culture, a shift in the very way we think about ourselves. So those are some of the themes that I've been delighted that I could be part of an organization that helps spotlight these kinds of people, these kinds of ideas. I think Yes has been very instrumental in helping actually name and give a tangible sense of what the new economy is. So This was an issue that we published in 2009, where we actually named the notion that there is a new economy emerging. And now we have many organizations that have new economy in their name. You see them, panels on the new economy, speeches on the new economy, books on the new economy. Dave Korten, of course, has been very instrumental in that. And then, yes, has helped both magnify that set of ideas and also give it a tangibility that if you just talk abstractly, it's kind of hard for people to really get. But in our issues of Yes, we of course always tell real stories of real people doing stuff on the ground. Dave and I have lived all over the world. We've lived in Africa and Latin America and Asia. And then we came back to the United States in 1992, where I worked at the Ford Foundation in New York City. And I had a kind of an interesting emotional trajectory as I worked there. My portfolio of grants was in sustainable community-based forestry. And what I found is that when I was sitting in New York, reading the New York Times, listening to NPR, talking to colleagues, I would get more and more depressed. It just felt like there's no way out. This was a period when the US passed NAFTA. We joined the WTO. My experience overseas told me, oh my God, those are terrible things to do. And then I would go out to the field. I would go to small towns that were in forested areas, and I would meet the most inspiring people. People who could see that there was a way that they could practice sustainable forestry that would support their community. It would support jobs, you would have a healthy environment. There were ways to harvest that would do that, and then to create products right on the spot where you would add the value that would give the kind of jobs that allow people to stay in their communities. So these were people, it seemed to me, that were really carving the way to the long-term future that we need. They could see that you've got to learn to live in cooperation with nature, and you've got to make it work for the community and the people who live there. And I just felt more people ought to be able to hear these stories. I get to learn them on the Ford Foundation's dime, because I could fly to Montana or Kentucky or Arizona or wherever. But most people can't do that, and they don't have the time, and they wouldn't know where to go in the first place. So when I got invited to come and head this magazine, which was very small and unknown at the time, it was just 2 years old, I just felt that magazine is doing what I'm talking about. Maybe I could come there and help it grow. So of course my husband David was involved in founding it. So I was following what that magazine was doing, but I was not involved at all. And when I was invited by the editor, Sarah Van Gelder, to come and head the organization, it just took my breath away. It was kind of like, I think this magazine is doing the very thing I've been saying needs to be done. So I felt that maybe I could help this organization grow, that the very small audience that it had at the time needed to be really huge. It needed to affect millions of people. I didn't know if we could do it, but it felt worth the try. So Dave and I moved from New York City to Bainbridge Island. The magazine was in the basement of an old house at the time. It had a staff of 4. I was the 5th. And we absolutely did not know if this would work, but it has. We've grown remarkably, and I think it's not an exaggeration to say that we actually do reach millions of people. Hundreds of thousands directly, and then the millions come from all the media that repost our materials, reprint them, speakers who draw on them, etc. So it's been very satisfying to see that growth and be part of the kind of inspiration that we can bring to people. So we started with the magazine, a rather small subscriber base of about 5,000. And now every quarter we print about 60,000 copies of the magazine that go out all across the country to subscribers, to newsstands, and some that we give away to activist groups that are active on the very issues that we write about. In 2009, as the web just began to explode in terms of its influence, we realized we have got to really be far more active. We had been publishing the articles from the magazine on the web. So we had a website that people knew, but there was so much happening, so much more that we could cover. And we realized that when we write really timely articles, they get reposted. So we launched something called Yes Takes on the News. So that's our Yes Take on the News, and we began to publish every day. So that's what we do now, publish every single day. We have a fabulous web team that picks up the stories that enable you to see that there really is another world happening. So for example, last week, the big headline regarding global warming was that the Antarctic Western ice shelf was doomed. That is a really depressing thought, that the sea levels are bound to rise and much devastation will follow. So that's a very important headline. That's not our headline. Our headline was Stanford divests of its fossil fuel investments, that the students had caused that the Stanford endowment is $18 billion, and they are divesting of coal and fossil fuels. So there you can see, on the one hand, yes, global warming is happening, nobody's denying that. And on the other, the world is changing. And it's people power. It's those students who were absolutely on their administration's case that we cannot continue to support a fossil fuel industry that is ruining our future. So that would be an example of the kind of contrast of yes with what you also get in the mainstream press. So the online presence allows this kind of timeliness. Stanford had just done that the day before, and we publish it. So this is the very exciting thing about the speed with which you can do things on the web, that a story breaks and that most people may well have missed, and then we can pick that up and show it to people. Along with the online daily publications, we developed a special email called Yes This Week. So that became our roundup of our top, 7 or 8 stories of the week. And we now have 85,000 people subscribed to Yes This Week. And what I love about that is it's this weekly dose of a whole set of stories that give you a different perspective on the world. So while you may feel like it's all going to hell, the alternative perspective of, wait wait, yes, we have a great unraveling going on, and we also have a great turning going on. Here's a picture of what that great turning looks like. So the fact that people get that every single week, it's Friday afternoon, and your people can sign up at yesmagazine.org. Just sign up for the email newsletter and just get a dose of a different perspective on the world every Friday afternoon. Yeah, that's a really great question. We all know that magazines and newspapers have hit really rough spots over the last 5-10 years. And unfortunately, many of our kind of sister publications have disappeared. And that makes us sad. We don't think in terms of competition. We think in terms of a collegial set of publications that we want to succeed. So why have we been able to succeed when others haven't? Well, a number of others have been for-profit. And the for-profit model on this kind of magazine doesn't work. You absolutely must have passionate readers who are willing to support you. For example, there was a lovely magazine called Hope, and it's gone. It was a for-profit. It was subsidized in the beginning by another magazine because the owner owned a magazine called Wooden Boat. And he used the profits from that to subsidize Hope, but eventually he didn't want to do that anymore. So I think a really critical factor has been the passion of our readers. So, for example, we have a program in which people sign up to give a monthly gift, like $5 or $10 or $20. And we now have over 2,000 readers who are signed up for that. So every single month they are contributing and providing this kind of sustainability. We have some foundations that have been very helpful to us. We have major donors. We have a set of people, about 200, that we call Founder Circle, who give $500 or more per year. And it is the combination of that along with sales. So subscriptions, of course, cost money. And people can buy other things from us, such as posters and canteen and tote bag and stuff like that, and books. David Korten's books have been very popular on our website. So the combination of sales, individual donations, and some foundation support, that diversified base has allowed us to survive and thrive even when other publications are suffering. Now, the other big secret here is that we don't take advertising. So the thing that has killed off other publications has been that their advertising has shrunk. Well, we never had it in the first place. So it wasn't our model. We went for the nonprofit model. And even though I don't have anything against ads, I think ads can be okay. But the fundamental ideas of Yes were about low levels of consumption. So the idea of having, a lot of ads for things just didn't kind of quite fit with who we are. And our readers have really appreciated that, because Yes Magazine is not cluttered. You open up Yes Magazine and you get stories. You don't get a bunch of ads. So, this is the way it looks. And on the inside cover of most magazines, you will find an ad. This would say vodka or something. We don't do that. So that's a difference that we have from some of our colleagues that have not fared as well. We've kind of recognized that it's the passion of our readers that, in the first place, is about our mission, right? if they're not passionate about what we write, they won't act on it, and the world will not be shifted the way we think it should be. So on the one hand, engaging the passion of our readers is our mission, and on the other hand, it helps us financially.